Hey guys, when I first bought this Harbor Freight lathe, it didn't take me too long to realize just how handy this thing is, and I've made quite a bit of projects with it so far, especially parts for vintage radio. And you know, the more I use it, the more I start trying to do bigger jobs. Now, this is a 7 by 10, and what that means is it'll swing something 7 inches in diameter, 10 inches long, which is not exactly true, because where they get that 10 inches from is from the chuck to the tailstock. Well, when you add stuff into it like this live center, that's so let's see here, we got about 2 5/8 inch added, just by adding this live center. Now this is screwed out about 3/4 of an inch, and the problem is this. I wanted to make a pin. This is a piece of 5/8. It's 6 inches long. It has a 1/4 inch head on it. This will be milled down to a 1/2 inch and threaded. No problem, right? Well, again, we're talking about 6 inches. Well, you can see here, this is where the carriage stops, and the carriage is stopping because it's hitting the tailstock, and the tailstock is moved all the way to the end as far as it'll go. And you can see the tool still likes about 1 1/8 before going to the end, and that creates a bit of a problem. So yeah, I could remove the tool and reverse the cutter, I'm doing just for demonstration purposes. Move the cutter to this side. Now you can see it goes past the end of the part, and then the problem is when you get down to this end, by the time you get into the 1/2 inch mark, your tool post is so close to the head that it's going to hit the chuck. So you can't do that on the 6 inch part. So with the live center removed and the shaft retracted back, as you can see, in between centers is actually 9 inches. Now you got to have some part put in there, but still it's only 9.5 inches. So actually it's only 9 inches between centers. So what we're going to do is tear this lathe completely apart, and we're going to make a little modification. If you think you're interested in seeing this, stick with us, and we'll show you what we're going to do. So I went online to Little Machine Shop, and I bought an upgrade kit. Now this video is not sponsored by Little Machine Shop. It's just that I would mention them because this is where I got this, and real great experience dealing with them. I ordered it, come out of California, and took 5 days to get it. It was well packed, no problem with damage. But what comes in the kit is a new bed. We'll convert the 7 by 10 into a 7 by 16. You get a new chip pan. You get a new rack that goes under the edge of the way here for the hand crank to turn on. You get a new lead screw, and a pack of hardwire motor mounts and some brackets that come with it. Now the other bed is 21 inches long, and this bed from end to end, measuring at the exact same locations as the other bed, is 29 inches long. So that's 8 more inches longer than the original bed. Now this kit cost I think it was $193 plus shipping and taxes. So not bad, you know. $700 for the lathe, $223 for the kit. Now if you were going to go online and purchase the 7x16, we'll have to look up the price and see how much it would cost. I'm not quite sure, but I want to say it's around $1,000 to $1,100. So if you already got a 7x10 or 7x12, and I think I'm not sure if Harbor Freight makes or sells a 7x16. I think it's the biggest they got is 7x14. So I went ahead and unbolted the lathe from the bench where we can move it around, and also it's not going to go back in this place. I'm going to make a dedicated stand just for the lathe. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and remove your tailstock. There's a little screw here in the back. It needs to be loosened up so the tailstock will slide off. And we'll go here to the other end and remove this cover. Now if you're removing your cover, you'll have to use the 2 Allen wrenches. I made these thumb screws for mine to easily, you know, take it apart without having to use any tooling. Okay, I've turned the lathe around. We're going to go ahead and remove this shield. That's 3 screws just hold it. That's one inside here just under the chuck. And these are Phillips screws. And then there's 2 down here under the bottom. This pulls right off, and we can set it aside. So to keep up with what screws go where, just go ahead and clean off some of this chips. Go back here. We're just going to go ahead and put the screws right back into the casting where they were. This way when we need them, we know where they're at, we know which screw goes. Now the next step is to go ahead and remove the control box and the motor and unwire everything. Make sure that, you know, you have your AC disconnected. That's 4 screws that hold this control box on, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. The 2 on the bottom goes into the casting, and the 2 on the top will screw into the headstock. So here you'll see the wiring that's coming in. You're going to have your motor wires, your AC wires, a couple of ground wires, and this is the wiring for the safety shield switch. So you'll need to disconnect all those. We'll go ahead and start by removing these ground wires. And we'll put the screws right back where they came from. Now, when you're doing this, take plenty of pictures. That little star washer's kind of sticking to the headstock. But yeah, take plenty of pictures so you know where everything goes back at. Now with this kit that we got from Little Machine Shop, there'll be, I think there's 9 holes that we'll have to drill and tap. 2 of them will be the bottom cover holes. You got to remember, when these things are built in China, they're built for different brands like, you know, Harbor Freight, Grizzly, and there's many other brands. Next thing we're going to do is clip this wire tie. Okay, what I did was I marked the 2 wires. This one is marked PS, goes to the power switch. This one is marked F/R, and it goes to the forward and reverse switch here on the front. That way that when we go put it back, we know exactly where those wires go to. So all we got to do now is just I've taken pictures so we know where the white and where the black wires go. So we'll just unplug these from the switches, and then down here are the 2 safety switch wires, and we'll have to loosen up those 2 screws and pull those out. So I'll go ahead and do that off cam. We'll go ahead and remove our change gears. Remove the 82 from the lead screw. There's a keyway here, so make sure that you do not lose that keyway. That one there is pressed in there pretty tight, so I'll have to get it removed out. We'll go ahead and remove the small gear and the other 80-tooth gear. Again, there's a collar and a keyway in this assembly here that holds these 2 gears together. We'll slide this collar here off. We'll take this nut here loose. We'll go ahead and remove our stub shaft. Now this hole will have to be drilled and tapped on the new casting. Okay, we'll go ahead and remove the motor cover. There's 2 Phillips screws here. Slide this right off and pull our wire harness right through. Now, depending on your lathe, some do, some do not. Sometimes there's some screws that are screwed up here in the bottom of the base, and what they do, they adjust the motor, keep the motor level when you're adjusting. Mine does not have those. So all we got to do is turn it around and loosen the 2 motor mount screws. As you can see down here, there's 2 screws down the top that holds the motor, and then there's one here in the middle that adjusts the position of the motor. So we just need to take these 2 taps off. If you notice, they are studs that has a Allen head in them. So all we got to do is just loosen up these 2, take them off, and we can remove our motor. Okay, I went ahead and removed the nuts and washers. I've loosened this one up, and we should be able to pull our motor straight out the back. Okay, so we can just grab the motor, we'll lift it up, take the belt off, and we can slide all this right out. Alright, we'll go ahead and remove these 2 screws. Takes that out of the way. Now there's 2 cap screws here that we'll need to remove. And the belt just fell out. We got 2 screws here on this little shield, and what this does, keeps the wiring from hitting the lead screw. So we'll just go ahead and remove these. That gets them out of the way. Again, we'll put the screws back in the original places so we can retrieve them later. Then we're going to remove this bearing block from the end of the lead screw. Slide all this off. I'm going to have to deburr this end to get this off. Now at this point, if you make sure that your half nut is disengaged, you can pull this lead screw right on out. And then we can work on getting this here off after we deburr this edge. And go ahead and remove this pillar block from the end. Now we'll completely remove the end stop screw back here on the back. We should put a roll-off carriage right on off. There we go. There's a couple of screws holding this chip guard on. Now I don't really like the design of this chip guard because the chips don't fall away, they just build up on top of it. You just have to clean them off from time to time. We'll put these screws right back in place. Best way to keep up with your screws. Now the kit does come with some new screws, but you still have to reuse some of the older ones. Okay, we got 3 bolts that holds the headstock on. There's one on the back front corner and there's 2 here. So we'll go ahead and remove those. Got that one loose. Now we can grab our headstock and lift it right off. So that completely completes the teardown of the lathe. We will not need the rack that's under here. It can stay with this lathe, although we'll need to use some of the screws out of it. Now the new bed is covered with a protection coating, as you can see, and that keeps the waves from getting any surface rust on it while it's sitting in the warehouse and shipping. So we'll need to clean all this out. Acetone, kerosene, anything of that nature will clean it off. Okay, our first step into reassembling the new bed is we have to get our new rack. And if you notice that it's got countable holes on one side and the other side is just through holes. This has to be mounted here first, and what you want to do is the edge of this lead rack on the left hand side should be 1 3/4 inches from the edge of this front headstock mounting screw. And to find that edge, we'll simply put this piece of high-speed steel there, then we can butt off of it, and we can come down here and mark 1 3/4 inches. So now that we have a mark there, all we got to do is push our rack all the way up, put it right at the end of that mark, and we'll clamp it in place. Just make sure it's butted up tight to the bottom of the ways. Alright, now that these are this is mounted, alright, now that we got the rack clamped up here, we can take a transfer punch, and we want one that just does fit the hole, and we can go ahead and transfer some marks in there. And that way we have our locations of where our holes need to be. Now we have our holes marked. We're going to use a 2.5mm drill, and I'm going to go ahead and drill these out. When you're drilling them, make sure you're drilling straight. So I'm going to turn the bed around, lay it flat, and I'll go ahead and get these drilled out off camera. Right now that we got all 5 of our holes drilled, we're going to come back and tap these with a 3.05mm tap. Now when you're tapping these and you break through the other side, be careful, because these holes are right up against this way on the other side, and you can snap your tap off. Okay, I got all the 5 holes here. I got them drilled and tapped. The old rack had 3 screws holding it on. The new rack has 5 screws. Now the directions say there's only 4 screws. So you'll have to use your 3 original screws. They supplied 1 screw, and you'll have to obtain your other screw. I don't know if this was the upgrade and they didn't put the quantity correctly, but yeah, there's 1 screw short, so you'll have to use or supply 1 3 by 0.5mm screw. All we got to do is line the rack up and go ahead and put the new screws in. Okay, I got to dig around my screw selection, see if I can find another cap head screw that's 3 by 0.5mm. Alright, the next task is take the saddle from the carriage, and we'll remove these 2 cap screws. Yeah, they are a little tight. So. Alright, now we can take our carriage off. We got our saddle. Have to watch this gear, because this gear will slide off. And we'll set that to the side. We'll turn the carriage over, and we need to loosen up these cap screws and these set screws. I'll go ahead and get that done. Alright, now with that done, I got these mounts loose. We can slide the carriage onto the ways if we got them loose enough. Yeah, and we did. Okay. Okay, you see I got the lathe upside down got it supported by 2 blocks of wood, and I slid the carriage on. And the thing is, now we have to adjust these plates, and I've never really liked the way this is designed on these lathes, but I'm going to come up with some modifications later. Just ain't going to do it now. I got to get my mill situated so I can mill out stuff like it needs to be on the mill, and we're going to make some new holders to mount this carriage to the lathe. Like I say, I just don't like the way this is. The thing is that you loosen up the screws, you turn the set screws in, and then you tighten these up until it keeps the carriage firmly onto the ways. And only thing that holds it is these 2 set screws with the lock nuts. So it kind of wants to bevel up a little bit, and it doesn't ride completely flat on the bottom of the ways. So in the future, I am going to come up with something a little bit better. We're just going to put it back together right now the way it should be. So what I got to do, I got to set these screws, tighten these down until it's tight, then back off a little bit of these screws, and then lock these 2 set screws down. And it's a little bit tedious. It takes a little time to sit down and do that. I'm not going to record the whole thing, but as you can see right now, the carriage is a little bit tight, and I got a little bit of play on the front side. So just reach back here and snug these down just a little bit. The play is gone, and the carriage is still free. So I'll go ahead and do that to all of them, just to give you an idea of how to do it. Now, I haven't put any oil on this yet. I did clean everything to make sure there weren't no little particles or chips or anything in it. But I'll go ahead and work on this, and it'll probably take 30 minutes or so to get this perfect so it works right. And then, you know, it can be oiled up and should be fine. Okay, I went and got the ways oiled. Got our carriage moving fine. Now, sometime in the future, I also plan to add some wave wipers to the front and back of this carriage. That way it'll keep the ways clean, and I'll probably use some leather, and we'll have to make a plate to go on the front of both, and that'll hold that leather in place, and then drill and tap a couple of screws in it. That way when it comes across, it'll, you know, wipe any chips away from the waves. That'll be another improvement for this lathe. But what we're going to do now is go ahead and remount the carriage, get it back on. I went ahead and lubricated everything here, so shouldn't be no problems with that. And it's a bit tight at the moment, but it will loosen up as you you know, move it back and forth. And after you use it a couple of times, you'll need to readjust those plates on the bottom. Now we need to get our lead screw installed. And I got the two bearing caps here. Now on some of these bearing caps there's a oil hole. Unfortunately these do not have any. And my plans is to drill these and put in some oil caps on both of these in the next upgrade on this. So we'll remove one of the caps. We'll make sure our half nut is all the way up. We got the carriage about center of the lathe. And then we'll take our lead screw and slide it through. Then slip our other bearing cap on. So what we want now is the bearing block flush with the left hand side of the bearing block, but flush with the end of the casting, and then clamp it in place. We already got the other end clamped in place. We'll move the carriage down. I'll loosen up this clamp. Now we can lock the half nuts together. And that should have our bearing right where it needs to go. And we'll clamp it back in place. Now I can take a transfer punch and mark this bottom hole. But before I do that, we're going to unlock the half nut, move it all the way back to the other side over here, and do the same thing. And I'll run the carriage back and forth a couple of times until we make sure we got that lead screw just exactly where it needs to be. I went ahead and mounted the 80-tooth gear and the spacer and this washer that they have on there, just to keep the lead screw poured up against the bearing cap so it doesn't travel that way. That way we make sure the other end, and we don't have a lead screw that walks back and forth. And I pretty much got everything set now, so all I need to do is transfer our holes so we can go ahead and get this mounted. So again, all we're using is a transfer punch that just does fit the hole, and we'll tap it and that'll put little dimples in the metal so we can go back and punch it, then drill it. Okay, with the holes punched, I went ahead and drilled 2mm pilot holes for both bearing caps, and we'll drill these out with a 5mm, and we'll tap them to M6x1. Okay, now with our holes drilled and tapped, all we got to do is slide our lead screw back in. Go ahead and start the 2 bolts on this end. We will not snug them down yet. We'll just get them started. And we slide our bearing cap on the other end and go ahead and get those 2 started. I'll put the put our gear back on this end. Roll the carriage down this way. Engage the half nuts. We'll snug one screw. Roll it back down to this end. Engage the half nuts. Tighten the top screw. Go back down here. And loosen the screw that was tightened. Just retighten it and go ahead and tighten our bottom screw. Come back down to this end. Engage the half nut, loosen the screw, retighten it, and then tighten our bottom. And now our lead screw is in where it needs to be, and everything will go on that. As you can see, I went ahead and put the change gear adjusting lever onto the lead screw, and the reason for that is that we got to drill a hole for this adjustment stud, and we want to make sure that we get it right, so we're going to do it a little bit different than the way the directions tell you. The first thing I'm going to do is take a scribe. I'm going to go ahead and scribe the paint where this hole has to go. You can see now it's scribed out, so we know we got to be somewhere center in this. Now the directions say to come from this and measure 5/8 over, and that's where the hole's supposed to be. Come from the edge here, and I'm going to measure over 5/8 of an inch. That's a half, and that will be 5/8 there. So I took a pen and drew a line there, but before I do this, I want to grab the other casting. So to get it perfect, what I'm going to do is just take my calipers, and I'm going to get the center of the hole. We'll push a center punch in there, and that way I can put it right on the center. And now I can transfer that over to the other casting. Okay, and we'll be right in the center of those two lines. Okay, I went ahead and used a center punch and got it right there, and went ahead and knocked us a little hole there so we can get this drilled out. We're going to use a 6.8mm drill to drill the hole, and then we'll come back and we'll tap it M8 by 1.25. Okay, now I've changed gears to it. It's exactly what it needs to be. As you can see, it's got the full pivot, and we don't have to worry about anything. It'll be properly aligned if you do it that way. So with that done, we can go ahead and mount our headstock. Make sure everything here is clean, and make sure the ways on the bottom of the headstock is clean. We'll go ahead and get all 3 of our mounting bolts tightened up. Okay, we're going to remove these 2 studs that originally held the motor to the other frame. Okay. And what we're going to use is this new motor mount. I went ahead and chased out the 2 motor mounting holes with an M10 by 1.5 millimeter tap. And they have some type of filler, paint, different things in it. So put it off to clean out. Now we got 2 of these studs, these pin points on the end. They'll screw in with the pins towards the inside. Alright, now with those pins in, we got 2 large nuts. That's going to screw onto those. And this is going to be for centering the motor and then locking it down. Okay, with the studs removed, I'm going to put this bracket in so that this motor will set right on there. You have the pulley to your right, and this will set up here, and then we got 2 little short Phillip head screws that are countersunk, and we'll just screw those right in. And give them a good tighten. Okay. Now we can take our motor and put it on these 2 alignment pins. We'll have to screw the other one in. And we're not going to worry about adjusting or centering anything right now. We just want it on those 2 pins. So on the bottom we got this bolt that we'll put in. It has a locking nut on it. We'll screw that in. Then there's another one that screws into the top with no locking nut. Now all we got to do is position our motor onto the little dog pins. And then tighten the other one into it. You'll have to play with it, but just a little bit, but it will go. There it is. And we don't need to worry about tightening none of that up until we get this belt on, so we can get that belt aligned like it's supposed to be. We can go ahead and route these wires through the hole in the chassis. So you can see at this point our belt is on, but it's kicked over to one side. So we're going to have to go back and loosen up one side and tighten the other side. And what we're doing, we're watching this edge right here until it's the same on both sides. There we go. Now all that's got to be done is tighten the motor down. Alright, so tighten the belt up. We got this little screw that we put in the top. So I got a 8mm bolt on it. We'll just screw it out. This will push the motor down. Until our belt feels about right. And then on the bottom, we'll go ahead and tighten this here up to the motor. And that'll hold the motor in place, and then lock that locking nut. Now motor and belt is on. We can see we're not hitting, we're tracking pretty good. It looks fine. Now all we got to do is put our motor cover on, direct the wires back through here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to run the wiring on this side of that jam nut to keep anything from getting close over to the pulley. Alright, now we'll just bolt this back in place. And there we go, our motor cover is back in place. Now before, there's a cutout here and there's a cutout on the other side of the chassis, and you can get to your brushes in your motor. The way the motor mounts now, you cannot get to those without taking this completely apart. Okay, I've got a wires coming through. I got a protector in place, and we'll go ahead and remount that. Now that'll keep our wiring from getting into a lead screw. Now, before we connect all the wiring back up, well, remember I told you we got our 2 screws here for our top cover, but we got to drill and tap 2 holes in the bottom for the bottom of the cover. So I'll go ahead and get that done. And this is just as simple as we'll remove these 2 screws. I'll tie these in a knot so that those little wear keepers don't fall off. And we'll just lay the wiring inside here. We'll stick these 2 screws in, hold our cover in place, and we'll take a marker and go down here below and mark the bottom holes. just take these right back out. Yep, and we can see two marks down in the bottom for where holes have to be drilled. Got one here and one there. Okay, I got the two holes drilled and tapped. Now we can go ahead and mount the motor cover, and I'll go ahead and wire the wires up. Don't need to show that on camera. I think, you know, like I say, take pictures up where you take it apart. Then when you get to this point, you just look at those pictures. Alright, all I've got to do now is finish up the business end of the machine. We'll put this cover back on. This also holds off neutral and engage control. Got this bracket. Line those gears up. Now we'll put our change gears back on. We need to take the this 80 tooth back off. It's just snug, just snug on there just a little bit. It's not that tight. Set that aside. And then we can slip these two gears back on. Snug that up. That should go up far enough to engage into this gear. Now we can put this lead screw gear on. Okay, I'll have to adjust all this like you normally would when you're doing a gear change and get this running the way it's supposed to be. Well, there you go, guys. As you can see, it's mostly put back together. I don't have the lead screw cover on. I don't have the chip pan installed and not bolted to the bench. That's because I'm going to move this to a dedicated lathe stand. Also don't have the back cover back on, and I'm probably not going to put that back on, because when you put that black cover on that, it just makes everything in here so dark. But here's one good thing about it. Remember what the distance was between the end of the chuck and the end of the tailstock. We now have 17 inches. So even when we install the live center. There's your live center. We have 14.5 inches. And we'll take the live center back out. We'll put our drill chuck in. You have to screw this out a little bit so it'll go all the way in. And we have 13.25 inches from the end of the drill chuck to the lathe chuck. That gave us a lot more room to do stuff with. And I've already tested the electrical. We'll turn it on. And everything looks good there. And as you can see now, I have no problems at all turning this 6-inch pin down. I can go way forward. All you got to do is extend the tailstock, and that gives you enough room to slide back and start at the end. So now we can cut this down to size. I can thread this to 1/2 inch and have this pin made. In fact, by sliding everything down to the end, as you can see, my tool post is past the end. I could now turn 13 inches on this lathe. Now, you really wouldn't want to do that anyway because there's nothing supporting the middle, so you would almost need a steady rest on here. But you know, now we do have room to add a steady rest, so that's another thing I'll be looking for online. I think Little Machine Shop sells a steady rest that'll fit this lathe. But you know, that way you can work on this end and hold it in place, and then move the steady rest out of the way, and then work the rest of the way back towards the chuck. Okay guys, I hope someone finds this useful. Like I say, this is not a hard project at all. It's nothing what I even thought. All you got to do is just make careful measurements. Make sure when you drill the holes, you drill them straight, and everything should go together, you know, with no problem. Like I say, there's a few things in the directions that made a little easier in this video, so if you follow along with the way I did this, you have no problems at all. Now there's a lot more modifications I want to make to this lathe. I want to scrape in the ways. I want to do a better fit up and a new mounting system for the carriage. We'll be putting a back plate on the carriage to keep chips from getting down into these gears, and there'll be a tailstock modification where you can use a cam lock, so you don't have to use a wrench to loosen up this nut here to move the tailstock, and a few more things here and there that we'll be doing, you know, over time. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned, and we'll be getting into that later on. Anyway, hope you enjoy it. Thanks to Little Machine Shop for being able to supply this new bed. That should work out real good. The Harbor Freight 7x10 mini lathe is upgraded to a 7x16, and I must say this, to service with Little Machine Shop was just great. Fast shipping. I ordered this thing and they got it to me in about 5 days all the way from California. So when you order this kit, it's about 35 pounds for the bed, lead screw, rack, chip tray, hardware. It's about 35 pounds. But just great service. I've looked at a lot of stuff. They sent me a catalog, and there's a lot of other stuff I'm looking at in there. Like I say, just great service for them. They're not supporting this channel in any way, but when I do business for someone and I get good service, I don't mind mentioning them. And these guys are right on. You can't go wrong buying from them. But yeah, another one of the mods I want to do is put some tapered roller bearings in the head. That'll help prevent any chatter when you're turning parts, instead of these straight ball bearing roller bearings. So yeah, I'll be ordering some of them, getting them installed, and like I say, a lot more mods to be done. I do want to mention one thing. In one of the other videos, I made a notation in the video about this tool post. Let me get a little closer here. Never, and I will say this in the bottom of my heart, never order one of these. This tool post is a piece of crap, and the problem is, well, there's several problems with it. It uses these dovetails with a button on it. So when you slide the tool down on it, now this one is a homemade tool, and the reason why I made it was because I could tighten the tolerances up. But it uses a button, so when you lock it in place, it's got a cam, and it pushes your tool away from the tool post. And the problem with that, even with the homemade one, you can get a little play in it. Now if I grab one of the tool posts that came with it, like the one with the parting blade on it, you can see just how much play is in this thing. And when you tighten it down, again, it pushes away from the tool post, so it's using just the inside of this dovetail to hold it. Also, the screws that they had on these here was small, and you can see where it's wore the top of the tool post down, and they would actually drop down behind it. So you know, the idea of a quick change tool post, if I take, let's say, you know, you take a tool, put on it, you lock it down, you make a cut, you need to put another tool in there, make another cut on the same part, but then you want to go back to your same tool. The idea of this is that this tool will be in the same position every time, and it's not. Depends on how you lock it down. Like I say, mine, the homemade one's a little bit tighter than the factory, or there you can see just how loose that is. So the top of your tool might be at a different place when you lock it down. And I've made several of these right here, you know, because they just, I got tighter tolerances on them. Another thing I don't like, and this, I can already tell this is not going to last long. When you look at this handle, you think it's threaded into this cam piece. Not necessarily. It has a hole and it's already about wore down, and then it's got this little set screw in here. So that's what's holding it. You're not screwing this whole 1/4 inch shaft into this this cam lock. It's only being held in place by that little set screw. So this thing is constantly coming loose, and I can already feel it. It's going to give. It's either going to pull the threads out before long, or it's going to snap, and it's not going to last long. So I want one of the tool posts that has the gibs in it. This way, when you go to tighten the lever, you got a gib. It comes down into the dovetails, and it tightens it and actually pulls the tool towards the tool post. It's a lot more rigid and works a lot better. So I'm gonna be looking for one of those too, and get that changed out. Like I say, this tool post here, it was cheap. It's a piece of crap. I can't remember if I ordered this through Banggood or if I got it off of Amazon. I'll have to go back and look. But either way, both of those companies sell this. In fact, you can get them on eBay also. Do not ever get a button style tool post. I've seen some that's got a bigger button in it, but again, it's the same idea. It's pushing the tool away from the tool post. So yeah, stay away from those. And like I say, I'm going to be upgrading this pretty soon. Anyway guys, that's it for now. I hope this helps somebody out. This is I think a fantastic upgrade to this Harbor Freight 7x10 lathe, and it'll make it so you got room to work and take on some better projects. Again, if you're going to do this and you're going to turn something this long, you must have a steady rest to hold your work, because if not, you're going to get a little vibration in your part if you try to turn something this long. Anyway, that ought to do it for now, and again, thanks to Little Machine Shop for providing such a nice item and not having to have it ordered from China and shipped all the way here, because that would have been 6 to 8, I don't know, 10 weeks. It takes a long time. Anyway, guys, we'll see you in the next video. Bye now.